need to check this out.
I honestly thought we saw the first death in MMA because Kevin threw him on his head so hard.
He's too big to the head now.
I thought he was taking a breather, and when I went to move, he realized, turned me over.
Oh, here we go.
He is absolutely in the same categories of the Wayne Gretzky's, the Michael Jordans, the John Elways.
And yet, the only one doomed to be forgotten.
You're the greatest fighter to never fight in the UFC.
That's, to me, the biggest regret of all of MMA.
It is a shame. Fedor could have been over in the UFC and we could have got the best fighting the best.
I would have given anything to see that.
The crazy Russians know this. You know the real story and what the truth is.
Fedor Emelianenko is the baddest man on the planet.
The baddest
man on the planet.
But if that's so, why did he never make it to the UFC?
And you knew I was going to bring up this man's name, Dana White. He says recently he flew to an undisclosed island to meet with you and your team.
I flew to some island out in the middle of nowhere, okay? Did everything that they asked to do.
What exactly happened on that island?
We made him the offer, and he's like, laughing at the offer.
Is it true the UFC actually offered you $5 million guaranteed?
No, this is not true.
I say everything exactly how it happened.
The UFC didn't want me to fight there.
I want it worse than the fans want it now, believe me.
I think they wanted you.
We went there for nothing because those guys literally went there to not make a deal.
Now, from the UFC's perspective, Fedor never faced any real competition.
You give him the respect when he hasn't fought the guys. I mean, these guys are fighting 3 times a year, the best fighters in the world, but you're going to give him the respect?
UFC is the biggest organization in MMA, period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you're not a UFC champion, even if you are elite, even if you're fantastic, there's always going to be that thing that's attached to you that you never fought in the UFC.
However, back in the early 2000s, the best of the best were not in the UFC. They were in Pride FC.
Actually, when I fought in Pride, we had the best fighters in the world.
He was so good, dude. He was so scary and so stoic, and he could submit you or he could knock you out, and god damn, he was good.
Out of his 13 opponents in Pride, 9 were former or future UFC fighters. Amongst them, Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira, who became a UFC champion after Fedor beat him. Former UFC champion Mark Coleman, who fought in the UFC before and after facing Fedor. Fedor beat him twice. Former UFC champ Kevin Randleman. MMA legend Mirko Cro Cop, who fought in the UFC after getting knocked out by Fedor Emelianenko. And by the way, Fedor was only 6 foot tall and 230 pounds. That's relatively small for a heavyweight fighter, especially considering the people he faced. Another Russian fighter was wreaking havoc in Pride. He is known as the Grim Reaper. He also happened to be Fedor's brother. However, his destiny will be drastically different.
Your brother Alexander seems to be the complete opposite of you. He's cocky, he's arrogant in interviews, very outspoken. He's had run-ins with the law, covered in tattoos. How do 2 brothers, same parents, same surroundings, grow up completely different?
To answer that question, we have to go to Russia.
Чуть не умер в больнице, но потом его лечили, поднимали иммунную систему, и он после 3 лет.
Did you come from a very loving home? Did your parents show you a lot of affection, or were they more harder, disciplinary parents?
There was discipline, but everything was done based on love. Whereas for my younger brothers, Alexander, it was not as strict.
We came from a poor family. There were 4 children in our family, so we only ate potatoes.
And because his parents worked a lot, Fedor took care of his brother.
Садика после школы с собой на тренировку.
I followed his footsteps. He used to take me with him to the gym.
Initially, I was not getting a lot of result. I'm not all that talented, let's say.
Федор, уступая по физическим кондициям многим детям.
Маленький, щупленький, худенький, но глаза горели.
And because his parents worked a lot, Fedor took care of his brothers. At 18 years old, Fedor chooses to join the army.
The army allowed me to live without parents' guardianship and to live with a stern group of men. That's why it only hardened me.
Как раз у нас Чечня была. Я сильно переживала, конечно.
I served for 2 years. For the first, I served at a fire station, and the second year at the tank division.
Пожарники. Очень тяжело ребятам там служить. Выезжают молодые ребята, на пожаре, где обугленные люди. Очень тяжело, конечно, было.
And while Fedor was gone, his brother Alex chooses another path. He gets involved in street fights, crimes, and for reasons that we don't know to this day, he ends up getting put in jail at juvenile age. He comes out of prisons with those tattoos. Now, to the unsuspecting eye, those tattoos might seem normal. But believe me, they're not any normal tattoos. Under Joseph Stalin, millions of people were sent to forced labor camps, known as gulags. Within those prison camps, an organized crime group emerged that would evolve over generations. The Thieves in Law.
It has evolved into an autonomous organization with its own set of laws and customs, dedicated to perfecting the life lived under the shadow of the law.
These real criminals were the elites of the camp, often sporting specific tattoos related to Russian orthodoxy and culture, and terrorizing other inmates.
Конечно, человек, можно понять, конечно, по татуировке, кто там, допустим.
The stars in front of the shoulders meant that he was part of a criminal organization. The symbol of a cathedral represents all the years spent in prison. Each dome represents 1 year. Alex's cathedral has 5 domes.
True or false, you once tried to help your brother Alex break out of prison.
No, I never tried, and I don't try. I always tried to help Alexander. But if he does something wrong, he needs to take responsibility.
The Thieves in Law structure their own set of laws, including the duty of supporting criminal ideas and rejection of any form of labor.
That time to stay away from that criminal element that was so prevalent in Russia and I guess so attractive to so many fighters at the time.
Even during hard times in Russia, never looked in the direction of crime. I was always enticed only by the sports.
So while Fedor is training in the army, Alex is doing the exact same thing, only with other inmates. Both training for the same goal and drastically different ideas.
Еще находил время для занятий, то есть дополнительно сам занимался штангой, подтягивался, ну, скажем так, физическим. Развивался физически. Скажем, в армии креп духом и развивался физически. То есть я пришел уже человек, который работает, он постепенно перерастет. У меня нет ни отца, ни матери. В законе, по воровскому закону живу, не буду жить. Семейные планы – растить детей, чтобы семья моя жила в достатке, поддерживать родителей. Планы спортивные – продолжать дальше выступать.
Узнает жена Оксана. Где бы он ни был, первый телефонный звонок ей. Видеозаписи боев они просматривают вместе.
Я все время опасаюсь каких-то вот травм. Все равно я так побаиваюсь, но он меня убеждает с каждыми новыми соревнованиями, что он может, что он справится.
Мы считаем, что Федор, самый сильный и будет постоянно выигрывать. С него надо брать пример. Да. Были бы все такие у нас.
Такой уравновешенный, такой спокойный. Вообще он. Даже нет слов сказать про него. Мы его так любим. Такой простой.
Считает себя, то есть, как не ставит себя выше других, всегда на одном уровне.
In 2007, Pride collapses, and that's when Dana White enters the picture, trying to persuade everybody that worked in Pride to make the jump to the UFC and join the monopoly.
And we made them a crazy offer to come into the UFC and prove that he was the best in the world. And they turned it down.
Дону Уайту надо сначала научиться уважать людей, с которыми он собирается работать. Уважать бойцов.
Nobody in their right mind would have turned that deal down.
Деньги – это далеко не самое важное в жизни.
Instead, Fedor joins this new MMA promotion called Affliction. He defeats 2 UFC champions, Tim Sylvia and Andrei Arlovsky. And after 2 events, Affliction is forced to shut down.
It's usually root with the fighters. If not respect, he doesn't want to fight.
I talk some smack about them, they talk some smack about me. It doesn't mean that we can't get deals done.
And by the time he went to Strikeforce, he was already miles on the odometer. I just don't think he was the same guy.
And that's when things took a dark turn.
You're one punch away from being worth 0. It's hitting that dude now, right? They lay in bed and they turn the lights off and they just go, what do we do? We should have taken that deal.
Alex is accused of kidnapping and sexually assaulting the housekeeper and is sentenced to 4 years in prison. In 2016, the fighting promotion of Chachandira puts on a fight involving children. Fedor is appalled and he calls out the organization. A week later, his daughter, as she's walking back from school to home, Fedor's daughter gets brutally attacked and ends up in the hospital. Kadyrov then releases a statement claiming to be certain that Fedor Emelianenko has realized his mistakes. Alec comes out of prison 2 years before his sentence and signs with Kadyrov Promotion.
А для меня сегодняшний день Александр мертв. Понимаете? Он пропадает. Но я молюсь, чтобы он ожил и нашелся.
В каких случаях мужчину можно считать героем?
Героем? Мужчину можно считать героем.
Раньше все-таки не прославиться, а обращали внимание на добрые дела. Героями были те, кто делал добро какое-то.
But what would you like for your legacy to be, Fedor, in the sport? When people talk about you in 30, 40 years.
How do you want to be remembered?
Fedor saw how the UFC was becoming a monopoly and he wanted to avoid one party to rule everything.
Строить карьеру, не строить легенды, быть легендами. Я об этом совершенно не думаю. Но запомнить, наверное, нормальным человеком, обычным человеком.
However, in his own way, he blackballed himself, and he might have affected his career negatively.
Do you think his legacy was tarnished for the fact that he never made it here to the UFC?
I don't want to on the guy. You know, he's retiring tonight and all that stuff. But I never was one of the guys that thought he was one of the greatest of all time.
Or on the other hand, he never sold his soul and kept to his integrity.
Я счастлива, что сын, цель, которую поставил в начале своей жизни, очень рада, что он к людям относится хорошо.
В начале его рождения, появления на свет, как мужчины. Он маленький, но уже с детства герой. Другое дело, как он себя дальше в жизни преподнесет. Использует те качества, которые даны ему от рождения, или...
У меня наследие ассоциируется с тем, что, наверное, то, что останется после меня, сделано за мою жизнь. Доброе воспоминание, надеюсь.
Regardless, Fedor is now retired, and Dana White was never able to have him under his promotion. However, this didn't stop Dana White from creating the monopoly that Fedor feared so much. And to see how he did it, check out this video right here where I go over it. And I'll see you in that video. See ya!
It's all on the coat. Ballin' now, skirt down. All of these diamonds sold. Bought them for me with the yours now. You could drink it, but take it slow. Ballin' for you, falling for you.